August 6, 1945, 08:15 hours. A single message reaches Tokyo. The words are few, but their meaning is devastating. Entire city destroyed. Casualties catastrophic. Unknown weapon. For the men in the underground war room, it is not just news of Hiroshima's destruction. It is the collapse of everything they believed about the war and about America. The Imperial General Headquarters sat beneath Tokyo, a labyrinth of steel doors and concrete walls nearly 4 feet thick. It was designed to withstand bombing, but not the truth about to enter. For months, this underground chamber had been a place of denial. Daily meetings where defeats were reframed as temporary setbacks, where optimism replaced reality. But on the morning of August 6, 1945, silence ruled. A communications officer burst through the heavy door, his uniform damp with sweat, his breath ragged. In his hands, a decoded transmission from Hiroshima. He had not even stopped to bow, breaking centuries of military ritual. His voice was unsteady as he read the words, "Entire city destroyed by single bomb. Unknown type. Casualties catastrophic. Request immediate." The message ended mid-sentence. No further contact was ever received. At first, the High Command refused to believe it. General Yoshijiro Umezu, chief of the army, assumed a massive conventional raid. Perhaps 500 American bombers dropping incendiaries at once. Only such a force could explain total destruction. But their intelligence officers shook their heads. Radar had tracked only 3 aircraft, not 300. 3. For 4 years, Japan's war strategy had rested on 3 illusions. The first, that America's vast distances would make supply impossible. They believed the Pacific Ocean itself was their greatest ally. If the United States wanted to fight, every bullet, every tank, every soldier would have to cross thousands of miles of open water. Japan, by contrast, could draw resources from its conquests in China, Korea, and Southeast Asia. Logistics, they told themselves, would crush America long before Japanese resolve broke. The second illusion, that American society was weak. Japan's generals imagined the United States as soft and materialistic, a nation of merchants unprepared for sacrifice. They believed that after 30 or 40,000 casualties, public opinion would demand peace. Japanese soldiers, willing to die by the tens of thousands, would simply outlast America's fragile spirit. The third illusion, that the warrior's soul could triumph over machines. Japanese commanders believed superior discipline, training, and spiritual strength could overcome American firepower. A Japanese soldier, they claimed, was worth 3 or 4 Americans in combat. In their eyes, samurai courage would always outmatch assembly line steel. Hiroshima destroyed all 3 illusions in an instant. Distance offered no protection against a single bomb dropped from a single plane. American morale had not collapsed. It had hardened with every island taken, and spirit had not overcome steel. It had been incinerated by science. The numbers had always been terrifying, even before the bomb. American shipyards launched escort carriers faster than Japan could build destroyers. In 1944 alone, the United States produced nearly 100,000 aircraft, more than Japan managed in the entire war. American factories poured out tanks, trucks, and rifles in numbers so vast that they also supplied Britain, the Soviet Union, and China. Even America's research labs dwarfed Japan's entire military staff. Harvard, MIT, Berkeley, and Chicago alone employed more physicists than Japan's whole scientific community. Against such power, Japanese faith in spirit was nothing but a prayer against a storm. Now, in the ruins of Hiroshima, the truth was undeniable. The empire's illusions had turned to ash. America had not merely matched Japan's spirit, it had revealed a level of power that made resistance meaningless. By the afternoon of August 6th, Japan's leaders knew Hiroshima was gone. Reconnaissance aircraft returned with photographs unlike anything they had seen before. 4 square miles of city center had not been reduced to rubble. They had been leveled to bare earth. Buildings had vanished, foundations vaporized, survivors burned beyond recognition. Compared to the Great Tokyo firebombing of March 1945, which required 334 bombers dropping 1,600 tons of incendiaries over 3 hours. Hiroshima had been obliterated in a single instant, by a single weapon. The Supreme War Council met again in silence. Some officers clung to denial, insisting this was American propaganda. But eyewitnesses told the same story. Railway workers reported a flash brighter than 1,000 suns. Pilots described a mushroom-shaped cloud that rose higher than any storm, glowing purple and orange as if it were alive. From the mountains, survivors watched a firestorm consume the city within minutes. It was no trick. Hiroshima had ceased to exist. Then, as the shock of Hiroshima spread through Tokyo, a second disaster struck. At midnight on August 9th, Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov summoned Japan's ambassador in Moscow. His message was brief. The Soviet Union was now at war with Japan. Hours later, Red Army columns stormed into Manchuria, overwhelming what had once been Japan's most powerful ground force. The Kwantung Army, once the pride of the empire, collapsed before the Soviet onslaught. An army, armed with American trucks and supplies provided through Lend-Lease. Japan's final hope that Moscow might mediate peace on favorable terms, vanished in a single night. Surrounded on all sides with atomic fire from the east and Soviet armies from the north, the empire had nowhere left to turn. On the morning of August 9th, at exactly 11:02 a.m., a second atomic bomb struck Nagasaki. The city was reduced to ruins in seconds. The message that reached Tokyo was even shorter than Hiroshima's. City destroyed. Casualties catastrophic. Then silence. 2 Japanese cities had been wiped from the map in just 3 days, and no one could say how many bombs remained. Inside the imperial palace, debate in the Supreme War Council grew desperate. Some generals demanded a final stand, to arm civilians with bamboo spears, to fight street by street until Japan bled to death. They argued that dying as warriors was preferable to surrender. Others, shaken by the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, warned that continued resistance meant not just defeat, but the extinction of the Japanese people themselves. The deadlock threatened to paralyze Japan at the moment of its greatest crisis. Then, for the first time in the entire war, Emperor Hirohito broke his silence. His words were calm, almost whispered, yet they cut through the arguments with finality. The unendurable must be endured. In that moment, Japan's supreme leader acknowledged reality. Spirit and sacrifice could no longer shield the nation. The atomic bombs had revealed a new age of warfare. One Japan could not survive. Cabinet Secretary Hisatsune Sakomizu later recorded the emperor's private reflection, that if fighting continued, it would mean nothing less than the complete annihilation of the Japanese people. For the first time, the myth of divine victory was broken, not by American soldiers landing on Japan's shores, but by a weapon that made even surrender seem merciful. On September 2, 1945, aboard the battleship USS Missouri, Japan signed the Instrument of Surrender. The ceremony was brief, but the setting was chosen with care. Tokyo Bay stretched outward, filled with American warships as far as the eye could see. Overhead, wave after wave of Allied aircraft flew in formation, blotting out the sun. It was not just a signing. It was a display of power, a reminder of what Japan had faced all along. Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu, his leg crippled from an assassination attempt years earlier, leaned on a cane as he signed for Japan. Beside him, General Yoshijiro Umezu, chief of the army, added his name. Both men looked out across the armada and saw a sight more overwhelming than any battlefield. A fraction of America's military might, yet more than Japan had ever possessed at the height of its empire. In the months that followed, Japanese officers admitted the truth. They had not been defeated solely by the atomic bomb, or by Soviet armies, but by a fundamental miscalculation. They had fought with illusions, while America fought with industry. They relied on spirit, while America relied on science. They imagined the Pacific Ocean as a shield when it was in fact a bridge for Liberty ships. In the end, courage alone was not enough. The bomb was not the cause of their defeat. It was only the final proof. Japan entered the war believing America was weak, divided, and soft. They ended it confronting a civilization that could outproduce, outthink, and outlast them in every measure. Hiroshima revealed not just the power of a single weapon, but the collapse of an entire worldview. The illusions had died, and with them, the empire itself. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more in-depth documentaries on World War II and the Cold War, make sure to subscribe for future episodes.